Alright, so I'm trying to platinum every single game that's a part of the Editor's Choice catalog on the PS5, and it contains over 100 of the best games according to critics, and thousands of hours of grinding. The goal is for me to finish all of these before the channel hits 1.2 million subscribers, and if I can't do that, then I have to platinum Wolfenstein 2, a 10 out of 10 difficulty game and one of the hardest platinum trophies to ever exist. So make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Anyways, today I chose to platinum Expedition 33, or rather, you guys chose because I asked recently on my community tab which game I should do next, and this absolutely insane game won the vote. Also, shout out to the voters, it's a new record on the channel. But Expedition 33 is, well, you know, I'm sure you've probably played it, or at least seen it at some point if you haven't been hiding under a rock over the last year in the gaming world. It recently won Game of the Year, which after today I can say is 100% deserving. But in addition to that, it also won numerous other awards, and it's just kind of peak, I guess. But the Platinum Trophy is a bit challenging, coming in with 56 total trophies including the Platinum Trophy. It's rated at a solid 5 out of 10, taking an estimated 60 hours to do, and you know, I did do it in 45, so a quick flex. But it also has about nearly every type of trophy in the game. Missable trophies, buggy ones, grind, collectibles, side quests, post-game, it's got it all. And before we do start, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ItsIlusionexe because I typically post how the videos are going over on there, so thanks. Alright, so kicking the game off today with stage 1 to be just completing the story, and it's suggested you follow along with a companion guide to make sure you don't miss anything as you go about it, and to help lighten the load post-story in terms of collectibles. But Expedition 33's story is a banger, so this stage was so much fun. I genuinely kind of did hate getting collectibles during it, just because of how much I wanted to see the story continue on with. The story itself, though, begins with our first two main characters of the game being named Gustav and Maëlle, a sort of brother and sister type duo in the city of Lumiere, where the game takes place for much of it in key parts of the story later on. And the whole mysterious thing this game's intro alludes to is this event called the Gamage, which is a sort of ritualistic sending off of loved ones with flowers to appease this deity off in the distance looming. If you can't already tell, the world we're in is a bit of a mess, and there really isn't much else in terms of context that we get throughout the game aside from just us trying to defeat the main antagonist called the Paintress, who quote-unquote painted this world, or made it if you want to be more clear. Before moving on to the docks, to kick off this ceremony, however, I actually got 3 trophies from one of the missable things in the game. And yes, it's in the very intro of it. But this fight with a mime is missable because, I mean, you can just run past it to start the objective. However, if you do fight it and do it well, you'll get numerous trophies, which I got right here. First, from breaking an enemy for the first time, which is a very common combat feature. Then from using Overcharge, which is from using a fully charged overcharge attack. Basically, this is just an ultimate that Gustav has, and then breaking an enemy with it. And then finally, I got the trophy from also defeating the mime itself in Lumiere, and here is that. So the Gamage happens and all of the hot chicks and other people get taken away as tribute in a sense, and then the expedition gets ready to sail off to the Paintress on what everyone believes is a death trip because every year this happens and every year it fails. Hence the name Expedition 33, which is, you know, our number that's been given to us. Before you do sail off, however, you have to practice fight Maëlle, which is good fun. There is then some dialogue, a cutscene with the final send-off, and as we sailed away, it fades the title, and I got a trophy called Lumiere from embarking on the expedition. And that will kind of be the last, you know, quick trophy for a while, because most of the story trophies in this game are from completing full areas of the game, which take quite a considerable amount of time as you would expect. But back at it, the expedition is confronted immediately by a very terrifying old man who just so happens to be wearing an expedition uniform himself, and then he kills everyone. Yeah, this is what I call an unfortunate outcome. But this old man is also another one of the main antagonists of the story, and we will sadly see him again and again and again. After all the commotion, Gustav ends up alone and then passes out, only to wake up and be, for the most part, fine, besides, you know, some minor heart palpitations. Remember guys, the lion does not concern himself with a sharp pain in his chest. He's okay. But this is when the game really begins and we actually get to start playing this absolute masterclass video game today. The main way the story flows is through areas of the this game, all of which are uniquely functioning, looking, and named, with the first area being again a bit of an intro location and tutorial into how to play. Expedition 33 is again a turn-based combat game, so some people may not like it, but trust me, it is fun. After some wandering and surviving, Gustav runs into a body pile of expeditioners, rest in peace. He also tries to take that easy way out, as Grand Theft Auto would say, but upon fading to black, a woman talks. That bussy really did bring Gustav boy back, didn't it? No, but seriously, this girl is named Lume, and she's another main character of the game and part of our team throughout it. After a fight with her, she then says there might be other survivors out there, so we band up and go searching. Also, I can't remember if we are in the first area yet, but this first area of the game is called Spring Meadows, and my next trophy will be from completing the area. However, you know, obviously we aren't done with that yet. So there is then just a lot of fighting Nevrons, which is the general name for enemy or, you know, just creation in this game. It gets thrown around a lot. You also do have to complete 10 Nevron quests for nice ones, or else you'll miss a trophy related to that, which is highly missable. But after meeting our first Nevron quest giver, doing it, then doing some more fighting, Gustav and Lume reach a battle against, well, a boss. The first of the game being named Everclear. And this fight is a bit challenging just because, you know, we just started the game, but comparing it to the rest of the game, I would kill to battle this thing again. After winning a cutscene then plays, and it shows us spotting a message on a nearby wall saying that Mayel, who is Gustav's sister of sorts, is alive and has been taken further away to safety. And we blindly listen to this message without question, which is a choice for sure. But hey, I finished off the area, which was Spring Meadows, and the trophy popped right here. So we were then in the overworld, and this is kind of how the game functions. It's a bit weird to be honest, but like I said, the game goes through dungeons, which are all those unique areas, and then after you finish them, it leaves you in the overworld to do some exploring and then find the next one. It's honestly kind of cool. It just looks a bit goofy with how the camera is set up. However, the next area we went to in the story was called Flying Waters, and inside of Flying Waters is for the most part just more of the usual gameplay. And I'm not going to be going through every single fight in the game because it's very repetitive in layman terms, but when I say that, don't think it's not still a lot of fun and a great game, because this game definitely is that. So the next major thing that happened, at least in terms of trophies, was me getting a trophy called Paint Cage from, you know, breaking a paint cage. And this is a common gameplay mechanic in a lot of games where you need to break these 3 objectives to open the Big Daddy. If you ever played God of War 2018, they had something like this in that as well. A little shout out to the GOAT. But after opening it, I got the trophy, so W. Now moving on, the next major story beat was when we found this manor door in the midst of the Flying Water area that we are in. And obviously we entered it because, I mean, duh, hell, if I saw a door like this in the middle of a room, I'd at least open it a little bit. Zero survival instincts, maybe. But it teleported us to a literal mansion, and after a lot of exploring, which was very cool and mysterious, we ended up walking into a room, and oh my god, would you look at that, it's our girl Mayel. How sweet, how sweet. The messages earlier weren't a death trap, oh thank goodness. Anyways, after some chat, she then said that this tall, dark, ominous figure named the Curator was her friend and saved her. Interesting to say the least. So she joins up with us on the quest to find others, defeat the old man and the paintress, and we were then mostly off after it once more. So then a lot of fights followed, some harder than others. Eventually a cutscene triggered, and it showed us in the end of the Flying Water area in a very cinematic area with Gustav picking a flower, and we saw his late love, who was gommaged, as they say. And this game is also very emotional, so if you do play it, just keep that in mind. I, however, only feel trophies, so moving on. We exited the Flying Waters, and then the trophy popped from that right here. The next major area we went through was then the Ancient Sanctuary, and this area was also, or you know, is also kind of tied to the Gestro village. Gestros are a more, you know, funny type of creature in this game, and they also do love to fight humans, so that's what a lot of this game is for the next hour or so. But before we do make our way through the Ancient Sanctuary, which is actually a very short area compared to others, I got 3 trophies for more passive things. First being weapon upgrade from upgrading a weapon 1 time, and I'm gonna end up doing this hundreds of times, so that's easy. And then Lumina from consuming a Lumina point. This is a skill tree type feature in the game where you find these Lumina crystals around the world, and then you spend them on characters to unlock more skill usage for them. It makes sense, trust me. Here's that trophy. And finally, in this spree, I got the Curious trophy from witnessing an optional scene at a camp, something which we do a lot of because interacting with our team at camp is needed for numerous trophies. So again, very simple trophy, and here it is once more. Now finally, we made it through the Ancient Sanctuary, and again, it really wasn't long. There was like 4 or 5 fights, nothing challenging. We just ended up following a funny Gestro to the next one, which was the Gestro village, like I said a moment ago. So the Gestro village is a very chaotic place, and at first it's super disorientating. But the only goal here was to talk to the chief and then prove ourselves worthy in battles within their arena. So after I did manage to get there, that's what I did. The first few battles are so easy, it's laughable. But then for the champion, we fight another expeditioner who we know being named CL. One of my favorite characters in the game, by the way. Shawty is peak in many ways. But we just did a mock fight with her to appease the Gestros because they are out for blood if we don't battle each other. And then she joined us on the expedition. Also, I did forget to mention, but we had to become champions so the chief would help us cross the lake and get to the paintress. So yeah, that's why we did any of this. My apologies. Anyways, moving on, you actually just leave the area to move on with the game. And I got super turned around, but after I finally did, I got a trophy from the Gestro village area, and here it is popping. Now, my next trophy was in relation to where the chief sent us to, being SK's nest. Now, SK is this guy right here, a very big and very lovable, funny creature in the game who's capable of flight, swimming, overall just insanely good amounts of travel, hence why we need him in our expedition. But before he agrees to help us, he needed us to retrieve his stones for him, which he lost and his next door neighbor took. And his next door neighbor is a rock, so yeah, this is a fever dream. Anyways, you just win the fight, then head back, give him what he needs, and he agrees to help us, easy peasy. Also getting 2 trophies from that for unlocking SK and finishing his nest dungeon, so W's all around. We then headed off to Stonewave Cliffs, which is the next major area of the story, and while inside of it doing the usual fighting and all of that, I got another trophy, this time being from combat and called Synergy. With Mayel, use Pierce on a marked enemy while in Virtuose Stance. Virtuose Stance is very important, and it's one of the best skills Mayel has because it increases damage by 200%, so it's, you know, very helpful. Anyways, I just did what it said. I'm also pretty sure I did it on accident. I got the trophy right here. So in Stonewave Cliffs, we then did a lot of fighting, more than usual, and the fights were getting harder and harder. However, that's not the most important thing here, because in a cutscene after we were all set up at camp for the night, the old man shows up again, walking and walking and walking, ever so slowly over, until he just straight up sends a beam through Gustav. And I don't know how he didn't die on spot, but then you take over Gustav and fight the old guy for literally no reason because, fun fact, he is invulnerable due to his service to the paintress. So we literally just did this for nothing, and then in another cutscene after, he kills Gustav for good. Seeing this happen in real time, I was like in utter shock, and for the next few hours, the game really does fall off in quality because Gustav was the guy, and they just killed him. But granted, I do have a lot of respect for writers who do kill off main characters. Stranger Things. However, Gustav does get replaced instantly by another Chad named Verso, who takes his place and is also very strong. I'm not gonna spoil it, but he's also from a previous expedition. Anyways, after all that, the trophy from Stonewave Cliffs popped, and yeah, rest in peace. Back at it, however, the next day the gang then picks themselves up and continues on. And literally the first fight after I got a trophy called Perfection from using Verso and reaching rank S. This is another stance type trophy in which the higher rank does more damage, with S being the best you can get. And once I did, the trophy popped right here. So then the game, like I said, got a bit bland. The fights were still very cool, however the story flow again was just brought to a halt after Gustav died, but the next major area once more was the Forgotten Battlefield, and again it was just like all the others with some battling. But this one was quite different since we had a major boss fight against an enemy type named the Duelist, and it was a very scary fight. I pissed myself upon realizing I had to fight it, and yeah, it was just great hard fun. After beating it, you then continue on and kind of just run through a force until some emotional cutscenes play out, finishing the area off with another trophy pop. The game then takes a side step away from just going to new areas with the purpose of making it through them for an item, doing something, etc. And instead we go recruit a new character that Verso knows will be helpful to our quest, and his name is Monaco. So we go to his location named Monaco Station, convenient, and we just recruit him. We did obviously have to fight him to prove ourselves, and then also team up with him for one quick fight as well to seal the deal. But after that, he basically agreed to come with, and I then got 2 trophies. One for recruiting all possible characters in the game, and then the other a few minutes after from completing Monaco Station. Here's that popping. So at this point, we then reached more end story actions. The goal of defeating the paintress gets explained a bit more in seriousness to us because, you know, you can't just go fight her. Instead, we have to defeat these 2 bosses named Axons, and then get this other weapon to make it to her before you can even fight the bitch. You'll never catch me doing this much for a woman, on God. Anyways, the next area we were in was called Old Lumiere. Shout out to the homeland. Anyways, inside of it, you pretty much just battle Renoir, who was the old guy that killed Gustave. That's like all it was. And this time, he didn't murder anyone, so that's awesome. After the fight was over, we then got the Old Lumiere trophy, and we were then off to fight the first Axon. You can do these in any order, I believe, but if not, then my apologies. However, the first one I did was in the Visage area and had this very cool and kind of disturbing like triple area puzzle thing. You pretty much went to like a sad area, a joyful area, and then a rage area to beat these 3 archetypes to unlock the major boss and first accent. It slapped, trust me bro. But like I said, after finishing the part bosses, you then fight its full form, and it's a pretty hard fight. It took me a solid 20-ish minutes to complete, and that was also because I had a few stages. Don't we just love a boss that has to be beaten 4 times? Don't we just love it? But yeah, once I did win for good, a cutscene like usual played out, and I got the trophy from defeating the first Axon right here. So we then set off for the second Axon, and I'm pretty sure if I remember right, this area is called the Sirens, I don't know how you pronounce it, but in the midst of making it through to the boss here, I got a trophy from reaching level 33 called Expeditioner, and here is that. The next trophy I got was in, as you would expect from beating the second Axon, and this time the fight was very, very hard. I died numerous times before realizing that a bit earlier in my time in this area, we ran into a Nevron named the Tissuaire, and I previously ignored it because the trophy guy did say to try and not kill passive Nevron since they sometimes have quests for them, but I guess this one doesn't, and Verso even said in dialogue that we should kill it. This is because the Tissuaire is like a supplement to the Siren, and it buffs it a lot in the fight, making it very hard, which is why I then backtracked, killed the Tissuaire, and then went back once more to the major boss here, which is the Siren. And the fight was immediately easier. So much so that I did it in like 5 minutes, and also first try. W planning ahead, and after its defeat, we took down the second Axon. I got the trophy pop from that as well. Also, for whatever reason, when making this video, I thought there was 3 Axons, I guess, but I guess there's only 2, so that's cool. I really can't recall. I played like 20 hours of this game in one day, and it was a lot of fun, but my brain is fried. But the next trophy I got was called Monolith. From reaching the Monolith, which was like the gate to the Paintress. I also did spend a while getting open world stuff done in between, which is probably why my memory is shot. But once I did go after the Paintress, a cutscene just plays and it shows us running up to her. She's also just on the ground crying. Poor girl, question mark. But then after some useless fighting, a very abrupt and chaotic cutscene plays, and after it teleports us to the real Monolith area, and that trophy also did pop. So my next trophy was then the faded Paintress trophy from defeating the Paintress. And I'm not gonna lie, it took me a very long time to get to her. Apparently we weren't quite there as our characters thought so. However, after like 2 hours of traversing the game, we ended up where we needed to be and fought Renoir one more time. He evidently gave up after and then allowed us to fight the Paintress. Now the Paintress fight is very hard, but it's really not that bad. It just takes a lot of parrying, and that's really the only major challenge of this game. If you can parry or if you can't parry. If you can, you'll breeze through even the hard fights of this game. So evidently enough, after we did beat her, the trophy popped and her reign is over. I'm also not going to go through every detail of what happened after we fought her because there is so much lore in this game and I don't understand half of it. Also, half of it makes no sense to begin with, but it's still cool. Now, we actually aren't quite done with the story yet because in this intermission scene, we kind of get exposed to what is really going on, and basically the whole world is like fake and in a painting. Also, by defeating the Paintress, who is our mom in real life, we got her out of the painting, but our father is still inside, who is also Renoir, the old guy. Yes, Mayel is related to both of them in real life. Also, Verso was her brother, but he died in a fire. Overall, it's a big family matter, mess, all of the above. But back to playing, I got a trophy once we returned to Lumiere after it was all said and done. And the last objective of the game is to fight Renoir again and kill him because he wants to destroy this world and painting. Which, like, that's low-key understandable. I don't know, I'm kind of on his side. Which is why I then went and did a ton, and I mean a ton of side content. All of this is still in the first stage, which is shocking, but pretty much my next, like, 10 trophies are all from expanding relationships with characters, unlocking abilities, overall just side content filler that you would expect a game to have for trophies. I don't necessarily think these are fun trophies, but hey, to each their own. Also, I'm not going to talk about each and every one of these because they're all for the most part the same thing and they're just done by talking at camp with people. The only missable one is with Mayel, and you have to talk to her at level 6 and then tell her the truth about things, which boosts it to level 7, and yeah, that's about the only missable part of the camp, I'm pretty sure. But after everybody was level 7, I then got 2 more trophies before the end of the game, and they were both collectible of sorts. First being from fighting all of the lost gestures around the game and talking to them, which then sends them to our camp, and then from just doing all of the Nevron quests quest. Now, one quick thing about these that you have to do, you absolutely have to talk to them after finishing the quest or else it doesn't track it as done. And I unfortunately did not do that for a few, so I spent a bit of time going back and making sure. Ultimately getting it right here after my final one was finished, I guess. So then it was on to the end of the game, the final fight against Renoir. Now the fight itself was more than usual, and honestly this whole end of the game kind of felt dragged out to me. I personally lost a bit of interest with this whole arc. It just kind of had no meaning to me after finding out that everything around us was fake. But hey, the fight was still fun and it was very hard. And after I did win, I got the trophy. Also, I'm pretty sure everything dissipated away upon his defeat, but the game sends us back before that to do whatever we want in the world, so thanks developers. Alright, so now it's time to officially begin the cleanup of this game in stages 2 and 3, which sort of coincide in a way within each other. But for the most part, every single trophy in this game left is either just from boss fights or the final collectibles after boss fights. I also followed the order that got suggested and first defeated the chromatic Patank, then I beat Sprung right after, and following those two bosses I actually got 2 combat trophies. First from using CL and consuming 24 tel on a single target, kind of confusing but not impossible, and then I used Monaco and cast an upgraded skill 4 turns in a row, and I acquired all of Monaco's skills after that for another trophy. I then used Lume for my final combat trophy and I consumed 4 stains in a row, so here's that. Now before finishing up the bosses, then I went around and did all the Gestral games, all of which are pretty silly. The most annoying ones are the parkour ones because this game is just not meant for parkour. I nearly crashed out, I'm not gonna lie. But all in all, they are hard, and here's that trophy pop. My next trophy was then just from reaching level 66. Thank God it wasn't, you know. I then beat the Serpent Hair, which is a very hard boss and absolutely ginormous. Here's that trophy pop. I also fully upgraded a weapon shortly after that, so that's cool. And I was then on to the final few bosses of the game, beating Clé next, who was very hard yet again. And then I found all 33 music records and also reached the top of the Endless Tower. Absolute grind that thing is, by the way. Very hard and long. Wink, wink. So with that done, I then just farmed out levels for about 5 or 6 hours, and it was awfully boring. Legitimately, my eyes started to burn. It was horrible. But finally, I reached level 99 for that trophy, and I got it right here. I then ran around the game for another hour or so, gathering Pictos that I didn't have to try and use this instant final boss kill strategy, and I did miss a few at the end, but I kind of just said whatever and did the final boss anyways. I also did kill a random side boss during this without taking damage, so that's cool. And I also yet again did another side thing, which was the painting workshop mystery side content. One of the most dumb things in this game and very much just filler, but here's trophy pop anyways. So I then did fight Simon, the final boss of the game, and with the method I was using once I actually did it right, you can literally just 2 or 3 shot him, and you almost have to with how strong he is. So W guide, and whoever figured this one out, nice job, you are a virgin. But hey, I won, got the trophy, and then picked up the final journal behind him, which got me the last trophy in the game from getting all the journals, and then the platinum trophy pop as well. So that was the Expedition 33 platinum trophy experience. I think this game is amazing. I do however think that after the main story, or at least beating the paintress, it just kind of falls off in terms of story. The whole arc with Renoir felt very pointless, and I still don't understand completely what happened, but hey, it's got some of the best gameplay, graphics, music, and it's very fun, and it's not too challenging, so W developers. Unfortunately, the developers of this game are French, but it's okay, it's fine. Let bygones be bygones, and I'll see you boys in the next one.